Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Friday Push to Prod. Welcome back. Is that the right thing? I mean, we've been gone so long, it feels like almost a new thing. I think we're going to call this
Almost.
season 3, episode 1.
Wait, are you telling me that, nobody has done any push to prod for several months? Come on, I think half the game
Years.
companies
Several
out
months,
there
two
have.
years.
Two
The
years.
last episode we did
Are you
was right at the start
serious?
of the pandemic, right after everyone went work from home full time.
Yeah.
We had Sonia Weathers on, and she taught everyone how to work from home and required we all wear pants, which
She
we
put a
all
book
have
out.
ignored for 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I'm not wearing pants. Should I go fix that?
So no, we've ignored her for 2 years. Today's not the day to start following
We're
advice.
all wearing pants in our hearts. It's
We-
fine.
It's
Yeah, yes, we're all
yeah.
wearing little pant hearts.
I'm fairly sure that the past 2 years just didn't count for anything. I still struggle to come to terms with the concept that it's 2022 now.
It's
Right?
actually a good segue into what our topic is today. Almost
Exactly.
like you knew what we were going to talk about.
Right? Did you tell her?
Nope. You did.
Oh,
Wait,
that's right, I did.
someone did.
I do that sometimes. I actually tell people what we want to talk about before we bring
Actually
them in to talk about
organized.
them. So let's start off by, since it's been a while, let's start off by reintroducing everyone. We will start with our lovely guest, Linda Carlson. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what's
Hi,
going on in your
Linda.
world for the last little while.
Hi guys, it is great to see you. That's a good point. Since the pandemic, I have changed careers. Surprise! I am now the director of customer experience with ModSquad. I was a client for a good 10, 12 years, and when they extended the offer to join the company, I couldn't say, "Where's the paperwork?" fast enough. So that's what I do now. And also over the past 2 years, as soon as it became possible to get vaccinated and cross borders, my husband Eric and I moved back home to Canada. Well, home for me. His home is Green
Welcome
Bay, but too bad.
back.
I
We
know,
missed
right?
Oh,
you.
geez, I'm out
This
Great,
from
is
that.
why
yeah.
I wore this shirt today. Instead of We the North, it's We the Nerdy.
We the nerdy.
That's great. Yeah, it's really great to be home in Canada, and working from home full time now, and that's a huge change for me. I'm used to commuting. Well, in the Bay Area, I was commuting for 3 hours a day, and that was on a normal day. If there's a traffic accident or some other thing happened, then it would be well more than 3 hours a day. And it's so nice to have
Earthquake.
some of my life back.
Oh
No.
my gosh. Welcome
And
back to Canada. We missed you.
yeah, it's good to go home. I feel bad for Eric. He's got to learn how to say a boot now.
No, it's a boat.
No, he's fine. Besides, he's from
Worry? No,
Wisconsin, so at
no.
least the weather is not a big surprise to him.
Wisconsin has the
That's
same
fair.
accent and weather.
This is
I'm
It
fair.
pretty
does.
sure.
Mhm. Yep.
This is fair.
It's his
And
mom was all, "Oh, you're moving to another country. What am I gonna do? You're gonna be so far away." Mom, it's okay. We're actually gonna be 450 miles closer to you
Right?
now up in
It's
British
not New
Columbia than we were
Zealand.
in California. Yeah,
there
exactly.
you go. You guys are a little bit more east now than you were before.
No, it's well, barely, but it's more that we're way farther north. And of course, Rick, I know you're American, might not know your
There's
geography,
no
but
geography.
Wisconsin is fairly far north there in the United States, eh?
There it
Wisconsin's up
is.
here, eh?
There it is. Good day. That's right. The United States has kind of that little hump.
You want me to
It
blow
does.
your mind, Rick? Geographically speaking, I am south
Normal.
of you.
Mhm.
No, that I knew.
Okay.
Yeah, we go up. I mean, we're in the Arctic Circle, basically, in New England, so, as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's. Katie, I'm going to let you go next, but before I let you introduce yourself, I just want to say thank you for being the woman who has said yes to me the fastest in the history of my life.
Wow.
Let me just text your wife now.
When
When
I
you yeah.
when I approached Katie about restarting this podcast, I don't think I had like the actual question out before she responded yes. It was
It's
like,
just
so Friday push to prod, and then it was just yes. There was no
we
question.
we've been talking about it like when the pandemic hit, I out of all the bad things that were happening, the one good thing that could come out of this is that we could do more podcasts. And then we did a couple and went,
Yep.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I've been working in games for 19 and a half years. I started a million years ago on Mist Worlds. If you ever played Mist, it's not my fault. I joined after that game was created, but before the fourth and fifth and sixth ones were created. But and I Oh, and from there I went a lot of places, but now I work mostly for indie studios. I do a lot of contracts. I'm currently working on um, six, six or seven. It changes almost weekly because I'll pick up a contract for anywhere from a month to 6 years. And I love it. I do community management, social media, uh, online marketing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's me.
And I am Rick, just like it says over in one of these corners. I'm not good at pointing in directions. I'm Rick Heaton. I am still the director of influencer and community activations at Yellow Pike Media. I guess if you go all the way back to press, I've now been in this industry, goodness, almost 22 years.
Just don't think about it. We do
I
not
try
want to
not to.
think
My
about
first
that.
E3 as a member of the press was 2000.
Linda, you started in press as well, right?
Yeah, kind
Ish.
of. I actually started just being a fan and doing cartography for games, and then I worked as a contractor for Prima Games for several years before I joined the press.
I loved
Yeah, so
Prima.
it was pretty fun.
I worked
Yeah,
with Prima a couple times.
good
But
times.
yeah,
Linda started
we
as
met when you
awesome
were in
and
press.
continues to be so. So let's talk about why we are here. Other than this is the first podcast of a million that we had planned to do during the pandemic. So we're
Right.
playing catch up, Katie and I.
Wait
And
a
Linda,
minute. We just had 2 years of pandemic, and you
I
did not
know, and
do
we
one
didn't do
podcast.
anything with it.
What were you
Just
doing
like
with all your
everyone,
spare time? You're
we made
locked in your
sourdough
house.
bread.
We were running around without pants on. Do you want to stand up, Linda?
Right?
No.
No,
Lay off.
I can't do a
Actually,
pants
I
check.
worked harder. I don't know about you guys, but I worked harder. There was so much less getting on a plane and getting to relax and,
Right.
and get paperwork caught up. And there was a lot less going to the office, obviously, and sitting with clients. It was all just tons of work heaped on at home. And
Yeah.
every time I thought I had even the slightest gap, because I wasn't doing anything else, I would just pick up yet another contract. I just kept picking
Right.
up new contracts.
Productivity, I think, for most people went through the roof.
Hmm.
Um,
In our industry, I
yeah,
think.
Agreed.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we were really fortunate that our industry never really stopped, unlike
Nope.
so many others that basically had to stop because they were
They had to
unable
download
to
Zoom.
functionally do their
We
work,
already
right?
had it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason we're here is Lynn and I just recently went to PAX East. I'm seeing more and more companies calling employees back into office, at least in kind of a hybrid mode. We're doing that ourselves at Yellow Pike.
Right.
And one of the things that came out of PAX East, that was actually my second post-pandemic, if that's a thing yet. PAX, because went to West at the end of last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Me too.
Linda, yeah, I was going to say you've been to more.
So
Was it just 2 or a few?
Linda,
And
you've
also
actually been
GDC.
to
Yeah.
GDC, right?
Yeah.
So I thought now is a good point as I'm looking at the calendar and I'm seeing Gamescom looks like it's going to happen. So now we're talking international travel. Paris Games Week is going to happen.
Mhm.
TwitchCon Europe, TwitchCon US, PAX West is almost certainly going to happen.
Mhm.
We're going back to normal to some degree. On shows, we're starting to think about normal in the office. And my question is, and the whole point of this is, are we doing it the right way? And what is the right way? And so what prompted this was a really unfortunate event that came out of PAX. Dawn Wood, if you know the PAX enforcers, she was D-Star. She contracted COVID during PAX and passed away like the very next week.
6
Mhm.
days ago. Mhm.
Yeah. So this is a horrible tragedy, but as far as I've heard, there have been very few confirmed cases of COVID that came out of PAX.
Well, Chosen one. That's a good name, actually. They're in chat saying they still have COVID
Great.
from PAX East. Please feel better soon, Chosen. We're sorry to hear that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
And I'm thankful that so far, knock on wood, neither of you have gotten it.
Right,
Nope.
which I think is interesting, and it
From
prompted
PAX East, I mean.
the
Yeah.
question. I went to West. West required for entrance, proof of vaccine or a current negative test,
Mhm.
and mask at all times. East
Right.
required full vaccination
Mhm.
and a mask at all times.
Yes.
Proof of a shot wasn't good enough to get in. You had to be vaccinated. And yet we still have cases coming out.
Right. But okay, so I'll explain why that happens because that's an easy one for me.
Sure.
Also, GDC was also they required not just proof of 2 vaccinations, but if you did not have to have your booster yet, which I didn't, I was scheduled for the week following, I had to go into the separate line over on the group W bench, right? And I had to have a COVID test done on the spot, which the
Wow.
Moscone Center sponsored and paid for. But it's a quick test. It only took 20 minutes, and I was pretty impressed by that. And again, masks on site all the time without exception. That includes at all three of these shows, it includes if you're on the panel or walking around the show floor or whatever you're doing, mask on.
Good.
Now, for GDC in San Francisco, the restrictions had completely lifted at all of the restaurants and nightclubs, right? So if you walk
Oh,
out the doors, you are going to be exposed because a lot of people who don't believe in vaccinations or haven't been vaccinated, and they're certainly walking around without masks on, and you're sharing space with these folks. Same thing happened in Boston, as you'll recall, Rick, as we were walking around.
mhm.
Nobody was asking for vaccines or proof of vaccine at any restaurant or pub, and nobody was wearing masks. So I would say that if all you did was go to PAX itself, you were probably safer than the general population.
Right.
Um,
But
so,
if you
and
did any of the parties or any of the get-togethers,
or if somebody else went to a party and get together and caught it and then passed it on to somebody else, because
yeah,
even with vaccines, you're not completely safe. I actually
right.
contracted COVID at the very end of January. I woke up one Sunday morning and felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The
Mhm.
next day, Eric went in and got me a test because, of course, up in Canada, it's free tests. Here, have as many. Here's a 5 pack of tests. Use them
Every
as you like.
time you go to the grocery store, "Do you have five more tests? 5 more? I have 20 at home. Have 5 more."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So I took the test and I was positive, and that was the worst 2 weeks of my life.
Oh my
I can
gosh.
only imagine how much worse it would have been if I hadn't been vaccinated, because my lungs are naturally like Swiss cheese. I'd bring a diagram, but that would be kind of gross to show. And anyway, um, so I probably was still operating under some degree of immunity by PAX, even though I'd had my booster shot by then too. But it's one of those facts of life. It has become one of the cycle of flus that we face every year. And
Mhm.
something that has always surprised me over the years is why we have ever been allowed to fly around on planes while people are hacking up a lung because they don't feel like canceling their flight because they've got this horrible flu, which they then pass on to the rest of us on the plane, and then we
Because you're
all get off
breathing
and we
a tin can
right.
of air.
We
Yeah.
go to a conference, we pass it on to somebody else. I can remember coming home from so many conferences and just being deathly ill for weeks on end,
Because you get
because we
what anybody else had there.
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
Con
And I
crud is a thing.
Con
so
crud.
I think at this point, all we can do is be very grateful for the fact that vaccines are available. I am still scared to death of COVID because I could catch it again, and I'm in quite a high risk group, and so it's been nice knowing you. Um, but at the same time, without the vaccines, we'd be in much worse state of affairs.
I
So
agree.
it's tough. It's tough.
So,
Mhm.
so now that you've hit on literally every possible argument that I was going to try and make, um,
Oh, bye. It's been
no, I think
great.
it's great. I think you summarized it better, certainly than I was going to do. I guess the question is, yeah, I think we do have to take this mindset moving forward, both in terms of return to office and return to something like a normal convention and events schedule
Mhm.
that I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm belittling it, and it sounds like all of the very valid concerns about COVID are being swept away in a single comment. But you said something, Linda, that this is one of the flus we're going to have to deal with moving forward
Right.
every year, or more realistically, probably it's every day, right? Because
Mhm.
this isn't going to be
Right.
seasonal. It'll be worse, more than likely, in the winters as everybody goes indoors.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But what does that mean for the industry, for all industries? How do we, Massachusetts, just before PAX, dropped all of their restrictions. That's why nobody was out if you were at PAX. That's why nobody was wearing masks in restaurants. Nobody was
Same
wearing
with
masks or
Ontario here.
asking. Right.
What about BC, Linda? Did you guys
Oh
drop
no,
there too?
they dropped. We dropped ours probably the same time as Washington State did. Anything that happens in Seattle automatically happens in Vancouver because, little known
Okay,
fact, they're the same city. You know, there's
sure,
some sort of a wormhole that travels between them
sure,
because they're exactly the same.
sure.
No, it's all
It's like
gone
Toronto,
here.
New York. I get it
Yeah,
for sure,
and
for sure.
it's I feel kind of weird, and I will still wear my mask sometimes,
Yeah.
and sometimes I won't. But it's one of those things that I'm hoping that this is the new normal. We know that in some Asian countries, wearing masks during flu season
Right.
is just it's what you do,
If
and
you,
it's not
especially
it's
if
to
you're not
protect
feeling
yourself.
well or if you've been around someone who's sick, you wear it
Right,
to protect others. You don't wear it thinking, I'll protect myself, and if I have my mask on, I'm safe. You wear it to protect others.
I
And
can.
right,
that's what people can't figure out. Oh, well, masks don't work but if both
Right.
parties wear them, yeah, they do.
correct. It's
Exactly.
irrefutable evidence.
And I think if you go back, I mean, so that we don't dwell on COVID and the immediate problem. If you go back to, I want to say 2003 with avian flu,
Mhm.
I can recall being at E3 and every person who came over from Asia was masked. Every
Yep.
last one of them. And honestly, they looked at all of us from the rest of the world like, what is wrong with you people?
Do you
Right.
remember at the start of PAX East 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone from first of all, most of the Asian companies canceled.
Right.
Remember, PAX
Hmm.
was half
Mm-hmm.
empty. But second of all, it was we felt weird because there were people walking around PAX East. Like we were all laughingly not hugging and
Right.
we were doing the elbow bump and they were sanitizing every door handle and, standing at the escalators,
Yeah. I
rubbing
can
the
remember they literally had like the Lysol sanitary wipes and they were just pushing them to
just pushing them on
the
the
handheld thing and throwing
right,
them away
and
and
we were like, "This is
constantly.
surreal," but that because this was literally the week before the world just completely shut down. But do you remember anyone you knew that had flown in from Asia had a mask on?
Right.
Hmm.
And there were a few, I think, I don't know, maybe more astute or open-minded people there that were also thinking, "Oh, you know what? I have a mask. I can wear one too." And they started, but it really hit home when we got to the airport to fly out after PAX, and every worker in the airport, food services, security guards, everyone had a mask on, and I took pictures and called my kids and said, look what's happening in the world. Like this is it.
Right.
We're
Right.
you know, and yeah, 3 days later, my daughter called and said that college had been closed. So
When I was traveling down to PAX East, everybody on the plane had to have a mask on all the way over to Boston.
right,
But the restrictions dropped while we were at PAX, so the
yeah.
Boston airport and everybody on the planes had no masks on. However, the last leg of the journey, flying back into Canada, the attendants on the plane had to keep reminding people, just as a reminder, the mask mandate is still on in Canada. When you're on an airplane, please put on a mask on now. If you don't have one, we will give you one. And people were
When you cross
rebelling
the
against it.
airspace,
Yeah.
When we got on
wow.
the plane,
Oh, when you
because the
got on the
plane's
plane,
destination was
got you,
Vancouver,
got you.
everybody had to be masked up, and the people were objecting.
Ugh,
And I'm going,
oh,
it's not gonna kill you. This disease will kill you. And let's not pussyfoot around the fact that this is the deadliest flu that we've seen in our lifetimes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I is pretty old. I don't know about you guys. Um, I have lost 6 people that I knew personally, one of whom was a very, very good friend. All
Mm,
of them were under the age of 50, and all of them died before the vaccines were available.
mhm.
Now, that is not a normal rate of passing for people
No,
in that age group, and it has been horrible, and I think it would be disrespectful to anybody who contracted the disease and who
or
passed
knows
because
someone
of it,
who has.
Right.
Mhm,
or who are living with COVID,
mhm.
long COVID, right? It would be disrespectful to all of those people not to take this illness seriously. So if I am asked to wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask. If I'm traveling on an airplane, I'm going to be wearing a mask.
It's
The
the
good thing is you
least
can
you
get the
can
really
do.
high quality ones now, right? We
Right.
we used to have to make do with cloth masks. Now you can get the good ones.
Mhm.
It makes sense to do so, and I'm going to get every vaccine that comes down the pipe.
So
Yeah, we're
I
just
threw up
waiting
a
until we can
comment.
get our fourth. I think we just have to be a tiny bit older. because I'm
Mhm.
not
Yeah,
quite as
I'm
old
in
as you.
line for my fourth.
Yeah.
So I can go get it now. I think as of last week, I can go get it anytime.
Yeah, they're doing
Between the timing
60
of my
plus
third and
here
mine.
for the fourth one,
Right.
and
It's
I'm not
50 plus
quite
here, so I'm
60. Yeah.
just there. I threw up this comment from Slugbiker because it kind of proves our point, right? She talks about how she was at a Lego conference in Portland, that on Friday they required proof of vaccination and mask, and then
Yep.
Saturday there were no restrictions,
Mhm.
because the rules changed in the middle of the conference.
Yep.
And I think, to be honest, we're going to see more of that. We're going to see, like Linda said, where the restrictions applied and then they didn't, and then they
Sure.
did again, just in traveling back and forth between countries. So this really feeds into the question. The games industry has not been fantastic about protecting employees from con crud or being tolerant of employees' concerns about con crud. To go back to
Or a lot of
2009,
illnesses or
right? To go back
pregnancies
to
or sure.
2009, right?
Yeah.
With
Mhm.
swine flu, which really sort of spread from Seattle, from PAX West,
Yep.
out into the world.
Mhm.
How do we take responsibility, at least for our industry, and doing the right things? And is there any way to ever enforce it, Katie?
I think something that oh, sorry, go ahead,
No, no,
Katie.
Linda, go ahead. If
Oh,
you have an
okay,
answer,
so,
go.
uh, both at GDC and at PAX East, I noticed that there were empty spaces on the floor. It was great to see a lot of people back, but on the game dev side, I'd say that the floor was about a third empty, at least a third empty. And those were all the big game companies, because those big game companies are at higher risk for liability should they say that should they require employees to go to these events where there is a risk, and they're well aware that there's a risk. And if somebody from their company catches COVID at one of these shows, it's going to be very, very bad for them. At the same time, a lot of the indie companies sort of go, my God, we've been locked up for 2 years. We have to go somewhere. We have to go somewhere to show people our stuff. You can't do everything on the web, as it turns out. But I think that the large companies were being very careful for a reason, even though at the same time, they were starting to go back to thinking about, should we open up our offices? Should we require everybody to come back or just a subsection of the people to come back? It's been a very interesting time, an extended period of negotiations and considerations.
Well, if you're saying there were these big gaps in the con where these companies had planned to attend, had they canceled? Like, had they?
I don't think they even
I
plan
don't
to
think they,
go
yeah.
They
because
just
the
kind of had a
the show
standing
it
order for
wasn't like
10 years
yeah.
in that spot. Um,
So
yeah,
all of the best spots were taken by smaller companies or
sure.
actually a few newer companies. But it's not like there were huge gaps in the floor. Both the GDC and PAX East did a really good job of organizing all of the show space.
Yeah.
So I think the larger companies just never intended to go yet.
Okay.
They
I think they're
probably all
still
thought
working
too
through.
soon,
Yeah,
Right.
too
I think
soon.
they're still working through, as Linda suggested. What's the risk, right? What's our
So,
Yeah.
exposure corporate
sure.
wise?
Yeah, and what's our liability, of course. Well, so to answer your question, I mean, I think as employees, at least me personally, and I'm working for indie teams, and you guys are working for bigger, I mean, I do work for some large clients once in a while, but um, I think, and of course, some of the games I'm working on are published and produced by very big companies. So um, I think what we have to do as employees is what we have to do, what we did during BLM, what we did during, well, right now during the Roe v. Wade talks. Say something, say anything, send that email to either your direct report or to the CEO, or I guess not to HR because they're not super reliable for having the employees' backs as much as the company's backs. But say something to somebody who you know is going to be an ally, who you know has the ear of someone who can take that stand. For example, it's just a fresh topic this week, unfortunately, but looking what Bungie did, during the Roe v. Wade conversation,
Hmm.
before any other game companies waded out. And there were game companies during, after the 2016 election and during
Hmm.
BLM and during the pandemic, mask mandates, vaccines. there are game companies that do take stands, and you'll always have the fans saying, you know what, you make games, just stay in your lane and make games. Just like they'll say to I don't know, Tom Cruise, like, oh, don't tell us what you think, you're just an actor. You know what, we're human beings. Everybody's a human being. We're all governed by the same laws. We all vote for the same representatives. So yeah, we have a right to go to work and be able to discuss our politics, or have our company represent, doesn't even have to be politics, just what's right to do in the world. I did want to
Agreed.
say that one thing I heard during the pandemic a lot, at least in our neighborhood, was anytime you see kind of that lone grocery cart that's way at the edge of the parking lot that somebody didn't have the decency to just take back to the corral, you can
change 5
always
people's cars.
yeah, you can tell the state of your society by whether or not people will even take the 2 minutes to return the grocery cart. If you can't put on a mask for the sake of not me, but my mother-in-law, you know,
Right.
my daughter, her boyfriend that just had surgery, whatever. If you can't do that for me, then what hope do we have? Like, it's literally the least you can do. Now, I'll play devil's advocate and say it's been a long fucking 2 years. It's been a long 2 years. I didn't say it out loud, Rick.
No,
And
I heard it.
psychologically, we need to get out. I was this close to going to PAX East, and I, at the last minute, I did back out, just because it wasn't 100, I wasn't 100% needed there. I did what I had to do from home, and I did what I had to do via conference call and video. And then I thought, you know what? Let me just not take that risk. If I had to be there, I would have. I did go to the James Taylor concert, and I did go to church, and I did go to my granddaughter's baptism. Like, I'm going to things, I'm going out in the world again, but it's tough. And the thought of PAX was really, I wanted to be there, and I really didn't want to be there at the same time, more than ever
Right.
in my life.
And I get that. And it goes to something I think Linda, you said earlier, it's like sometimes you wear your mask and sometimes you don't. I have that walking from, and I did it this afternoon, walking to go buy some groceries. I have that in my head of I'm counting cars. I have a mask in my pocket. There hasn't been a mask mandate in my town for months. The mask is in my pocket, and I'm making a mental calculus as I'm walking into the store. Are there more people in here than I'm comfortable with, or less people? Right?
Do you not just automatically wear it? Just why not? Like, I do it for
Sometimes I do.
health and political reasons.
I'm kind of both ways. If
Yeah.
the parking lot's really empty and I know I'm going to far corners
Sure.
of the store,
Sure.
my odds of running into another human are low. So
And
I
there's
may
plastic
not.
between you and the cashier,
Right,
right? Yeah,
exactly. And
so you're
none
good.
of the cashiers in my town, in any of the stores or any of
Yeah.
the staff at any establishments are wearing masks of late because they've all been
Wow.
trapped.
Okay.
And I think you made a good point, Katie, in that it really, I mean, if I can kind of distill down what you're saying, is it's going to be a case of employees at companies have to advocate for themselves
Mhm.
within their companies and say, hey, I understand we need to go to this. I'm not comfortable. Is there someone else can go?
Or I'll
And
go if
right, or I'll
our
go if.
company is one of the ones that, you know, hey, I work for Microsoft. Can we ask Microsoft to tell PAX West that
Right,
masks should be enforced the way they
right,
did at PAX East? Because I
Mhm.
felt safe there.
right.
That kind of thing.
And I will give huge props to Reed for organizing events where that level of at least an effort, right? You can't
Oh
control what
yeah.
happens outside the event venues, but if you can control what happens inside and who's allowed inside and
Mhm.
have policies in place that are clear, at least you can get to a point where people can do the mental calculus, right? They can say, I'm
Yeah.
okay with this, I'm not okay with this. And I think
Right.
that's really important. And I had that quote up from Subbiker. To your other point, Katie, about people do want to know where corporations stand, right? I
Yes.
think it is wholly within the realm of corporate rights. Is that a thing? Well, I guess after Citizens United, yeah, it is a thing in the
Sure.
US. We have decided in the US through whatever means that companies are people and have right and have freedom of speech. So I agree 100%. If a corporation wants to take a stand, they should be entitled to do so because they are made up of people. They are made up of human beings that have rights, that have concerns, that have families. And I personally believe that
that have
It makes them
women
more
or
responsible
elderly
because
or
of that, right?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
do want
Linda,
to
you were telling me there's thousands of people that work for ModSquad. There's a responsibility to thousands of people. With Katie, it's a responsibility that when you go to a show,
yeah.
you're not infecting me. You're infecting me, who is going to go home, and I'm going to infect my wife or my kids,
Yeah.
and all the way down the line, you are becoming a threat to multiple people.
I
And
do
I
want to
think people need
say
to make decisions.
one thing, and that is what Bungie said about Roe v. Wade, which was excellent. Basically, just advocating for the women that, are part of that company.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Fragile White Guy in your 50s, we are not talking to you. But if there is a 14 or 16-year-old Halo mega fan, that sees that tweet and thinks, oh, I'm going to look into that more. Or, you know what, maybe I have it wrong, or maybe I don't understand fully. Why would these people that I idolize feel this way? Just crack the mind open a little bit. So yeah, I just like that we're having the conversation and not just shutting each other down. And if you're one of those people trying to shut it down, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
So I actually have I have an emerging view of what's happening in the corporate workspace, and of course, my view is limited to some extent to the game industry because that's the one I'm the most familiar with, and yet I see it happening across industries of all types. And first of all, the sense of social responsibility. We have long become used to voting with our wallets, right? Who do we support? Who do we buy from? Who do we continue with in business
Hmm. Who
relationships?
do we
Whether
boycott?
it's right, who do we game with? Who do we go to get fast food with? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
In addition to voting with your wallet, now we have a new thing. We're voting with our presence. And this is not just whether you're going to play games or listen to music or watch shows, but it's also who are you going to work for? The
Yeah.
shift to work from home has initiated a sea change across all industries
Yep.
where you don't have to be on site. And there are a lot of people who do have to be on site. But for anybody who does not, suddenly the world's your oyster and people can make a distinct choice as to where they want to work. I could not have moved back home to Canada I chose a company that was already
Mm.
working remotely. And part of the reason for that was because I wanted my life back, right? So
Mhm.
I got my life back. And then I sat back and watched all around me as COVID made that the norm for almost everybody.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it had the side effect that for industries where you can't work from home, those industries suffered and those employees suffered terribly. And I know that, there were government grants and that sort of thing. I saw the amounts and I'm thinking, I can't live on that. I felt terrible about that.
Mhm.
But now that we're emerging out of it, the discussion is taking place at every single company. I don't think I want to return to the office. And if I don't want to return to the office, here's all these other companies who are currently hiring, paying a decent wage, and I can continue working from home. Pants optional.
Or if my kids get sick, I can work from home. Or
Precisely.
right? Or if I'm not well, I don't have to come to the office and give it to everybody. Think of all the jobs we had in the past, and we all have them, where
Oh,
you felt like dog shit when you woke up in the morning. Sorry, I swore again. And you just thought, I can't not go to work. And you dragged your sorry butt to work and you felt like crap and you gave everybody the crud that you brought from home.
right.
And but nobody said, oh, Katie was sick on Monday and now on Thursday, 5 more people are sick. We never thought of that. I
No.
think, but we'll all think of it now.
But but
You'll
but
walk in bleeding from the eyeballs. They'll say, go
Yeah.
home. They won't say, well, can you get the Penske file? They'll say, go home.
We hope.
But
We
We
hope.
hope.
just to illustrate that, it is true. Now, especially in gaming, you're coming down to crunch time, and some guy, oh, I've got the flu and I feel really terrible, and I feel like could just want to lie down here and die,
Ugh.
but I'm here, and everybody's like, oh, what a hero! It's so amazing that you came in even though
Yep.
you're so sick. And I'm thinking, screw you, jerk. Now I'm going to get this, and I will not be able to crawl into the office. I will be flat on my back and unable to function. Thanks very much. Speaking of the mask thing, you all know Evan Berman, right? Sorry, Evan, I'm
Yes.
going to call you out here. A
Hi,
little
Evan.
story
Uh-oh,
for Evan
shout out to
Berman.
Evan.
Yeah, shout out to Evan. At Tryon one
Here comes
time,
the
he
bus.
came in and he was just just coming off a flu, and he was worried that maybe I'm still contagious. So he wore a mask, a proper mask, N95 style mask, right? Do you know how long that lasted? About a day and a half. Do you know why? Because everybody made fun of him.
I
And
love
so
you, Evan.
I know, right? And it was just peer pressure. Everybody treated him like, "Oh, look at you in your mask and all this." And I'm thinking, "No, dude's doing the right thing.
Oh
He's
my
doing the
gosh.
right thing." And this was long before COVID, of course.
Sure.
But
He
so
w
I think
he was
our
being
mindset.
responsible and
He
wise? How
was,
dare
yes,
you?
That's
I
so not
That's
know,
ethical.
not
right?
I'm
what dude
I
kidding. I'm
bros
kidding.
fired
do.
him immediately. No, I didn't. No, but I
Oh
think
my
that now we're
gosh.
seeing that this is the right way to handle it. If you're
Yeah.
feeling a little off and you're not sure if you're pretty sure you're not contagious, but you might be, put on a mask. It's not going to cost you anything, right?
Exactly.
Just
I
be
Oh,
thoughtful.
yes,
Just
Slugbreaker
care
had a
about your
cool
fellow
question.
man and woman. That's
right.
it.
I put up Slug again. She's making all the good points today. Yeah, but the problem is also that so many employers don't provide sick leave.
Mhm.
So folks have a situation, and it's in many industries. You
Actually,
work,
even if they
you get
do,
paid, you
there's
don't, you
that
don't.
guilt factor too. I have a friend he's a property manager. Like he works for the property management company at a gated community, about 40 units, and he does things like he mows the lawn and he fills the pond and he you know, clears the snow. And yesterday they were replacing fence posts at the edge of the property, and he bent down just as the bobcat turned and he got slammed in the face with an
Oh,
auger an
oh,
inch below his eye. And of course, I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, Yeah, I'm okay." And this was at about 5 o'clock last night. I said, "So you've been home?" I said, "What time did this happen?" He said, 11 o'clock this morning. I said, "So you've been home since noon?" He's like, "No, I toughed it out for the rest of the day. I
because
don't
that's what you
have enough
do.
sick time." And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Walk it off. Yep.
this is like a workplace injury situation. Like, don't they have to set the days without injury back to zero? And he's like, no. He said, I'd let them know if I felt like I needed any time off or any kind of medical. I thought, what is wrong with, like, as a Canadian, this like, I don't know. I
Well, at
don't
least
know.
he's got free healthcare, right? But
Right.
at the same
Well,
time,
ish.
there
Yeah.
is there is and also if you
Oh
end
no,
up with
this
a
was an American.
long-term.
This was not a Canadian.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so
So
sorry.
to
I'm
Katie's
so
point,
sorry.
in the U.S., we're taught this, and especially, I hate to say it, especially guys, we're taught walk it off,
Walk it off. Yep.
tough it out.
Yep.
We're taught that, and
Shake it
again,
off.
I'm speaking very much from a cis male standpoint right now. I'm over 50, so I was raised a very specific way that if you're not dead, you go to work. If you're merely dying, that means you still can get to work. That means you should go.
Right.
Um, there is no excuse for not working and providing. And to me, that's stupid, right? And unfortunately, the country is built to support that methodology.
Yeah.
Your friend in that example has probably grown up and in a work environment throughout his entire life where every time he changed jobs, the policy is the same. If you lost a limb, then it's something maybe we should talk about. But if you didn't, can you tough it out till the end of the day
If
and
he
just go
loses a
home
limb,
and,
he'll
and
get a
take the weekend?
prosthetic and go back. Yeah, he
Right,
literally, and that's only if he doesn't have to work this weekend. I
right.
think, just to sum up, in as far as the topic is concerned, um, now that we're back to normal-ish, which we all agree is not normal, it's new
Yep.
normal.
Yes.
Um, are we going about it the right way? I'm going to say that yes, I believe these, even though I personally decided not to attend, and even though those that did, had to comply with these new rules, yeah, I think we should have these events. I really missed them. I think psychologically and fiscally, we need to have these things. But I think it's going to be a while before we see these big companies maybe attending for a while, which is fine. Maybe it's changing so many things, right? It's changing the
Right.
way we look at. I mean, we all need to be Evan Berman feeling coming to work after the flu now. We
We
all
all
have
need
to
to be
be,
Evan plus not going to work if we really think we're that sick.
but if we have
Oh,
to,
yeah.
let's just think about other people, because if I went to work, I don't want dude bro lying on the couch while we're brainstorming in the corner going, I'm so sick,
Right.
because we're all going to get it. And we can't really punt him out. So I want everybody to be like Evan, think about other people, just do unto others, right? Just if
Right.
you were
Yeah.
sick, I'd want you to wear a mask. So if I feel slightly sick, or if I was in the drugstore 2 days ago and somebody coughed near enough me and there's a gap in my mask, that's enough for me to want to wear a mask when I'm near you, because you never know. You just never
You
know.
never know, and the invisible droplets are all too real. But
Mhm.
what we are seeing is that globally, we do have, the global workforce is still come in unless you're dead. Or if you're really sick, everybody has a lot
Yeah.
of sympathy for you at first. But what happens if your sickness is more than a week long? Are you coming back? Like, what's your prognosis? Do you have a note from your doctor? Or eventually it's just going to be, we understand that you're very sick and this is now a chronic condition and we're very sorry, but
We
we're
need
going to have to
somebody
get
to do
somebody in
this
who
job
can
and
work.
yeah.
So now I think that globally, if we can, and if we can stop shooting each other all the damn time, this is the time to start talking about minimum guaranteed income, where you're working because you want to work. I
Mhm.
don't care how many people I help to support. Canada's actually a pretty good example. Yeah, my taxes are high here, but you know what? They're no higher than they were in California. Go
Nope.
figure.
No, they're
Um,
absolutely not.
and yet, in
And
exchange for that,
your healthcare is
oh,
free, which it wasn't in California unless you worked somewhere amazing. Like, you get a lot more bang for your buck in
oh,
Canada.
case in point, because when I first moved here, of course, I couldn't enroll for healthcare. You had to, that's a process, right?
Mhm.
And God knows Canada's all about the paperwork and the red tape and that sort of thing. I got sick.
The
I had
red
to
and
go to
white
the
tape.
local hospital, and local hospital means 45 minutes away, but they saw me right away. And they gave me my medications, and I said, "Look, I'm almost out of my US medications. Can you write me some scripts?" He said, "Yeah, it won't be covered, but here's the script. See what they're going to charge you." And I went to the drugstore and I went back an hour later to pick them up. And they said to me, "Oh, we need to talk to you about this, but we didn't actually ring this up yet because it's a lot of money." So I
Mhm.
said, "Well, how much?" And they showed me the bill and I said, "So this is without copay. This is with no insurance." And they said, "Yeah, we're really sorry," because
Still
they're
less than
Canadians.
US.
It's still less than I paid with my healthcare copay in California.
Yeah, we got
So
Bernie prices up here, remember. He
and
loves us.
and there are people who will argue it's because the US pays for 9/10 of the medications and the R&D, but what if we just did this globally? What if we just acted like, I don't know, human beings and
Right? Who care for
started
one
thinking
another?
about the who care about other people,
Yeah,
those who have not, those who can, those who cannot, those who think differently, those who have different skills. Nobody's perfect. I specifically hire people on my teams to do things that I am not particularly good at, and that's what we should be doing as a
as a world.
species.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
I,
species,
I,
yes.
and I don't know if we'll
wholeheartedly.
ever get there,
I'll,
which is why I drink on Fridays.
If the world was
I
run by
saw
community
earlier
managers, we would get there.
I have proof that she's not lying about drinking on Fridays. A
It's
couple of
it's a light
points
beer.
from an American point of view. Um, it's so different. I think we're trying. I think there are enough good people in place to to start the process of trying to make the right decisions
I
moving
hope
forward.
so.
I
I
think
hope so.
there are concerns out there that those people may not be in place too much longer, and that's worrisome.
Yeah, we've had a
Politically
few
speaking,
record scratches lately. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
There's I think COVID may have taught some businesses in some industry that your workforce expects things from you as well, and I'm hoping that sticks.
Yep.
Um, I think Rap had a really really good point. I'm going to put it back up here again. So to be fair, it's hard to be on your game and productive when you're sick and groggy, fatigued,
Right.
etc. There is a fiscal argument within a company to say that if you're making this employee work, their productivity will drop every shift that you're forcing them into work ill because they're not getting better, they're getting worse.
And impact everyone else.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're exposing the rest of your workforce to
Yep.
give someone, the opportunity to not lose their livelihood while recovering from an illness. This seems like third grade math to
It's a
me. This
no-brainer.
is not hard, right?
Yep.
And yet there's a problem in the US, which I think is at the core. There are plenty of great companies out there that give amazing benefits. Do not take this the wrong way. The fact that work is tied to your health care in this country for
Oh,
90% of the people in this country, if you're not working, you don't have health care. The Affordable Care Act is great as far as it goes, but if you have no money, even if you're on the catastrophic plan that costs $100 a month, where are you getting that hundred
Where are you
bucks?
getting your
And then
100
how are
bucks?
you paying your copays and your deductibles and all these
Mhm.
other things? That's a
Yeah.
fundamental change I think that has to happen. We have to be able to separate work from being healthy, and being healthy at work from keeping your job,
But if
right? I mean,
COVID
this
didn't convince any of the doubters out there, what will? If a global pandemic where 1 million of your
that
Americans died.
that's my concern as a human,
There
right?
are still people
Sure.
who deny that the pandemic is a thing. There are still people who deny that the vaccines are valid. I mean, that's the problem. At the same time, and
Oh.
so we have a family right here in this town where the breadwinner of the family, they were an anti-vax family. The breadwinner caught COVID and died shortly after, and then they put up a GoFundMe. And so I am the last person to turn away people who don't believe in things. I don't care if you're coming to the hospital for heroin addiction or
Mhm.
because you have a broken leg or because you had a really bad day and harmed yourself. I don't care. It doesn't matter. People still need to be treated with decent human
And
dignity.
dignity. Yep.
Yes.
And so we're this whole podcast is, back to normal. Are we doing this right? No, we're not. But we're doing better than we ever have in the past,
Mhm.
or at
Mhm.
least in the memory of our present civilization. So we'll see where it goes. But I think it comes down to all of us to start voting with our presence, with our money, and with whom we choose to work for. And hopefully that will help. Another good
And I
point here
think,
from
yeah, I think Rap has a very good final comment on this whole thing. They said that I think this pandemic has helped expose a lot of toxic work environments and caused a great deal of employment migration, myself included, to find a more empathetic and compassionate work environment. And I think kind of the final word, we're all agreeing on the same basic thing, that there should be lessons taken from the last 2 years. And those lessons should be that we as individuals in the workplace, our employers as responsible citizens within the global environment, need to look more at how do we become better humans. And I'm even saying that about the corporations themselves. And how do we
Mhm,
make the decision and make the right decisions, where that line between profit at all costs and saving the people really
mhm.
exists, and make sure we fall on the right side of that.
I couldn't agree more.
Exactly.
And it's a personal decision. So, for instance, at PAX, I heard somebody in one of the lines say, "So it's stupid. We have to wear masks in here, but you don't have to wear them outside." I mean, what's the point? The point is that PAX has decided to make it their responsibility to provide as safe of an
As
environment
they can
as
control.
possible,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
They can't control what happens outside of the buildings, but they're doing the right thing as a responsible corporate citizen. And I think that's what we all have to become as little elements of responsible corporate citizens.
And
I,
stop being the
mhm.
least common denominator. You're us as a species, we're only gonna go as quick as our slowest member. So don't be the slowest member. Just don't be the one that's dragging us all down. Um, my daughter would say to me, "Why are some people wearing masks and some aren't?" Like, obviously we are, but there's no mask mandate. I said, "Because you get to the point where we've dragged these people along with us as far as we can, and you can't cure stupid." So,
Mm,
like she was like, all we had to do was wear masks. You shouldn't have to mandate that. That's to like the least we had to do. I'm like, you have to mandate it for those people that otherwise wouldn't, because they're trogs. That's just all there is to it. They just
yeah.
are. They're just,
And and
yeah.
let us not lose sight of the fact that even with whatever precautions we can take, even with vaccines and people now having double, triple, and in some cases quad vaccines, we're still losing good people like Dawn through no fault of their own.
Through no fault of
And
her own. She
and
was fully
therefore
vaxxed.
Mhm.
Yeah, and therefore we must all take responsibility. Like I say, I'm very high risk. I'm scared to death that I'm going to catch death, and it's really unfortunate. And thank you so much for putting up that GoFundMe page because I'm
Mhm.
definitely going to donate to her memory. There, but for the grace of luck, right? It's a
Mhm.
random roll of the dice, and I just feel terrible about it.
Yeah, but you can increase your chances. You can add, plus to dexterity when you wear a mask, and plus to intelligence when you don't go to these events unless you have to. It is part of our job, but you guys needed to be there. I didn't this time. I'll be there next year. Let's
Mhm.
hope it won't be quite this trepidatious by this time next year. To anybody
Yeah.
who's watching or listening who knew Dawn Star, or D Star, I mean, who knew Dawn, my heart just goes out to you. And I remember her, and I did meet her. And to all the enforcers and the enforcer family and the PAX family, I send my deepest condolences to all of you, because yeah, I was
Most
so gutted to
assuredly.
hear that. That just sucked.
Yeah, I unfortunately did not see her at this most recent PAX, but I know her. I've met her several previous PAXs.
Mhm.
She was a good human. She really was. She was just a fun person, everything positive. And a lot of people that I know, I'm sure are feeling her loss. So for those of you that are hearing this after our recording, we've been putting up a link to a GoFundMe page to help with her final arrangements and to help her family out. I will have that added to the Spotify and iTunes pages and descriptions, so you can go
Mhm.
and go scroll down on this podcast and grab the link and do what you can.
Thanks
Be a
very
good
much.
human. Ladies, thank you so much. I am so happy we did this again, Katie. I'm thrilled. Can we not
We did
make
it.
it 2 years before the next one?
Okay.
I'll come back
Okay.
anytime. I have more opinions than you could possibly contain in a very
I
large bucket. So
Linda, I feel like we could do an 18-hour podcast about everything, and it would
I,
that's
be
th-
80% you,
I think Linda should just be every first Friday of the month or something.
right? We'll just schedule a standing kind of plot for Linda. It's like the first Friday of each month.
well, as long as you know that I'm a
We'll
bleeding
get
heart
down to
liberal
brass
socialist.
tacks the first
Oh,
Friday of every month. See, you have to
So am
sell it to
I.
her.
Thank you, Slug, for being
Thank you,
here.
Slug.
And thank you, Rap, and thank you, Chosen One. Chosen One is
Agent,
such
thank
a
you as
good
well.
name. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It was great to have you all here.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, ladies, for being here. We
It's
will
so
do
great
another
to
one
see you.
next week as soon as Katie and I figure out what that looks like. Have a great weekend, everybody. Please, for the love of God, love your fellow employees. Do not ever push anything to production on a Friday. This is my final thought. Have a great weekend, everyone.